The hearth crackled low in the great hall of Winterfell, throwing thin ribbons of gold across gray stone and thicker shadows. Eddard Stark stood beside the fire, broad shoulders squared as though bracing against an unseen wind, though none stirred inside the keep. Outside, snowmelt whispered in the gutters and an early spring rain pattered on the shutters. But even that watery music could not soften the silence that had fallen over Ned and his daughter. Arya sat atop the bench closest to the blaze. Her knees were drawn to her chest, arms looped around them in a posture that looked half defiant, half defeated. She had come from the yard only moments earlier, hair wild with sweat and practice dust. The wooden practice sword, a stout willow stick she treated like castle-forged steel, lay across her lap. Its length was smudged with chalk marks where she had parried Bran's tentative strikes earlier in the day. Ned's eyes traced those pale ghosts, then rose to meet Arya's flinty gaze. "This is not punishment," he began, voice low and level. In the light of fire and flicker, the silver in his beard glimmered like hoarfrost. "It is protection." Arya's chin lifted a fraction. Her gray eyes, so like lionas that the sight of them still snagged Ned's breath on bad nights, narrowed. Protection from what? From cats and sewing needles? From septas and stupid curtsies? A tremor of frustration colored the question, but beneath it Ned heard something rawer. Fear of being caged. "From the court," he said at last. "From the knives men hide behind courtesy. King's Landing will be no kinder to a wolf than it ever was. Stags grow restive in sight of a hunter, and lions—" Ned exhaled, letting the sentence trail. He had paced half the night deciding on these words, weighing stark caution against stark honor. When Dawn's pale fingers had brushed the battlements, he had made his choice. Arya would not ride south in Robert's train. Nor would she be left in Winterfell, hounded by emptiness as Jon had been, when Sansa and Bran and Rickon were taken from the hearth. The wall was one sanctuary, but too harsh for a girl of 9. Braavos, though. Braavos was another story entirely. The city of 1,000 gulls? Arya breathed now, unwilling wonder pricking the edge of anger. Syrio says the streets are stone ribbons over bright water. He says the temples sing day and night. Ned allowed himself a small smile. Ser Barristan had once called Braavos a city of masks, a place where one might reclaim a face long denied. For Arya, perhaps the masks offered freedom, not hiding. "That is part of it," he agreed. "It is also far from Lannister reach." His voice turned grimmer, and farther still from southern expectations of what a lord's daughter should be. She scowled at the floorboards. "Far from you, and from Mother." "Far, yes," he conceded, kneeling so they were eye to eye, "but not forever. When the time is right, I will bring you home." He did not add if the gods allow. Some truths were too heavy for children, even ones who swung sticks like swords and spoke of water dances in their sleep. A slender pause stretched, broken only by the hiss of sap popping in the fire. Then Arya straightened, releasing her knees so the practiced sword rolled to the floor with a hollow clack. "I will go, then," she said, "but only if Jon knows first. He won't laugh at me for crying."
Ned nodded.
"I will send for him." He rose, motioning to the guard at the door. "Bring Lord Snow." The words tasted strange. Snow, yet still a Stark in every earnest beat. But Ned had no time tonight for the cruelty of bastardy. As the guard departed, Arya shifted to stand. Her legs ached from training, yet she stood tall, chin squared like a commander about to march. Ned swore he could see steel forming in her. Not the brittle, showy steel of bright helms and fluted breastplates, but the quiet sort that flees no forge's flame. It would serve her in Braavos, he prayed. It would carry her across the narrow sea and back again. Footsteps echoed beyond the door. Light, quick, familiar. Jon stepped into the hall, gray wool draped across his shoulders, ghost padding at his heel. The direwolf's red eyes gleamed, catching the firelight as though it were his own. Jon's brows knit when he saw Arya, then lifted toward Ned, silent question plain as day. Ned cleared his throat. "Walk with Arya in the Godswood." he said softly. "There is something she must tell you herself." He turned back to the fire as brother and sister slipped out, Ghost's paws silent on stone. Alone again, Ned pressed his palm against the mantle. Heat radiated into his bones, but could not thaw the chill coiling there. He had felt it when Robert's letter came, summoning him south, chaining Winterfell's wolf to royal leash. And he felt it now, seeing 2 of his pups vanish into the hall. He feared the day would come when that chill froze him solid, leaving only the shape of a father carved in ice. The cobbled courtyard bustled 3 mornings later. Ser Roderick directed stable hands to secure wagons of winter-dry venison and cellared wine, while Septa Mordain fussed over linens that would be packed away for the southern journey. Sansa fluttered between the carts, her eagerness a bright banner amid the gloom. Catelyn stood beside Maester Luwin, discussing ravens and household regents, though her gaze drifted often to Arya, who waited near the western gate clad in plain brown riding leathers. No silks, no embroidery, not today. Arya had insisted on garb fit for climbing rigging and scaling rooftops. Sirio's tales again, Ned surmised. The first sword of Braavos painted every alley in the free city as adventure, every shadow as teacher. Arya drank those stories like water. Best that she have no illusions of ease, Ned thought. Braavos might glitter, but its canals ran deep and dark. Still, there was comfort in knowing she would land first at the House of Black and White, escorted by Tomard and 8 picked men sworn to Stark service. There, the kindly priests would give her refuge while she began the water dance in earnest. The men were mounted already. Tomard, stoic as stone in a leather breastplate bearing the direwolf. Holen with his crooked grin. Rafe adjusting the steel caps of the pack mules. Their ship awaited at White Harbor, sails trimmed in dun cloth to avoid notice along the bight. Ned approached Arya, who traced Ghost's paw print stitched on her riding gloves. Jon had pressed them into her hands at dawn, his only gift besides a whispered promise. "We will meet again and share needle between us." She had cried then, but quickly wiped the tears on her sleeve, cheeks burning at her own softness. Now she whispered, "Do I go, father?" He squeezed her shoulder. "You go. Write to your mother. Listen to Tomard. And remember, the pack is always with you, no matter the miles." She nodded, cheeks wet again though she did not notice. Ned brushed a tear with his thumb, then withdrew his hand quickly, as though he feared warmth might make him falter. Catelyn crossed the yard, skirts gathering slush. She held out a small cloth bundle. "Your favorite bread," she told Arya. "Honeyed on the inside, salt on the crust so the sea will not steal all sweetness." Her smile quivered at the edge, but her eyes were clear. When Arya reached for the bundle, Catelyn's hand caught hers, squeezing once, fierce, maternal, final. They said nothing. Neither trusted their voice. Tomard swung down from his gelding to stand sentinel as Arya mounted her sure-footed pony. Ned looked on, remembering a younger Arya who had once begged to ride Dancer bareback and nearly broke her arm when the mare spooked. How quickly years bled away into yards of distance. Trumpets sounded atop the battlements. Robert's hunting party returned from the Wolfswood, boar speared and singing body marches that carried across stone.
Ned Vincent.
His duty to the king would steal him south in 2 days' time, but first Arya must sail. He raised a hand. Tomard formed the column, signals crisp. 8 riders and 1 small girl wheeled toward the gate. Arya glanced back once, jaw set, then nudged her pony into trot. Hooves splashed through snowmelt, the portcullis yawned open, and Winterfell's walls swallowed them whole. Ned felt a hollowness inside, as if a rib had cracked and the marrow spilled out. He coughed, cleared the weight, and turned to greet King Robert with practiced cordiality. But even as he smiled, he heard Arya's departing hooves like a second pulse, drumbeat fading but never lost. The high-prowed proud maiden cut through spring swells 3 days later, plying eastward from White Harbor. Rain clouds roved the sky like tarnished coin, though a merciful wind bellied the square sail and kept storm's worst grumblings astern. Arya stood on the forecastle rail, hair blown wild, cheeks lashed pink by brine. She had never tasted salt this sharp. Winterfell lay too far inland for true sea air, and the tang thrilled her. Below on the main deck, Tomard oversaw the Stark men as they drilled with short blades. 3 against 3, blades capped so only bruises threatened. Arya knew every man's name and favorite curse already. She had earned those secrets by clambering among them, listening, asking questions most lordling girls never dared. Tomard had relented at last and promised daily lessons. Footwork on slick planks, proper knots, reading tides. She slept in the crew's quarters, not the cramped passenger cabins where merchants snored behind locked doors. At night she watched stars jitter through the rigging and whispered their shapes. The sword, the dire wolf, the maiden's cloak. On the 5th dusk, proud maiden threaded the maze of Finger Islands near the coast of the Three Sisters. One crag jutted close enough that Arya could see goats scrambling on ledges. A sistermen fishing boat hailed them, selling clams by lanternlight, then vanished into a black inlet without name. Arya breathed deep, imagining she could smell pepper and cinnamon drifting from Braavos already. Yet not all below decks was wonder. In the corners of her sleep, a different shore rose. The gods would pool, mirror still beneath the heart tree. She dreamed she knelt there, clutching a sword forged of moonlight, and the weirwood's red sap wept into the water. Leaves whispered warnings, but their tongues were rustling paper she could not read. Each dawn she woke with the taste of blood and rain. She told no one. Some dreams were maps meant only for the dreamer. 10 days into the narrow sea, sails appeared on the horizon. 3 longships, lean and hungry. Ironborn raiders, Tomard cursed, spying the black krakens emblazoned on ragged banners. The proud maiden could outrun one, perhaps, but 3, the master of the ship prepared to come about, hoping to slip between 2 small islets and lose pursuit, but shifting winds betrayed them. By sunset, the longships surged close enough that Arya saw reavers lining the gunwales. Axes raised, mouths open in soundless war cries swallowed by foam. Tomard arrayed his men at the forecastle, shields locked. The crew armed themselves with gaff hooks and belaying pins. Arya crouched below the rail, heart drumming like smith's hammers. Tomard had thrust a dagger into her belt and commanded her to stay hidden, but she could not tear her gaze from the enemy closing like wolves on a wounded stag. The first longship slammed alongside, grappling hooks biting wood. Ironborn leapt, iron-shod boots thudding on deck. Tomard's shield line met them with clangor and sparks. Arya saw Rafe topple one raider with a mace swing, crack ribs. Then a second kraken screamer buried an axe in Rafe's thigh. Blood spurted. The deck pitched. The world narrowed to blade flashes and screeches of gulls circling overhead, scenting carnage. A reaver spotted Arya crouched near coil of rope and charged, grin splitting salt-crusted beard. She yanked the dagger free, pulse roaring. Needle's lessons came unbidden. Stick them with the pointy end. She dove aside as his sword hacked down, rolling hard into the rail. Pain lanced her shoulder. The raider stomped after, but Tomard barreled in, shield first, knocking the man overboard. Below! Tomard barked at Arya without looking, parrying another axe. Now! She scrambled for the hatch, boots skidding in blood and seawater. Below, the hold stank of pitch and sour wine spilled from shattered amphory. She pressed her back to bulkhead timbers, the dagger slick in her palm. Above, the battle raged, feet slamming overhead. A body fell nearby with a dull crunch, friend or foe. She could not know. Time stretched. Arya counted heartbeats, lost count, then counted breaths. At last, silence rolled across the deck like a drawn tide. It lasted longer than any silence she had known at Winterfell, profound as grave earth. When footsteps approached the hatch, she poised to strike. But it was Tomard, face gray, blood wetting his sleeve. Safe, he rasped. Raiders fled, lost Holen and 2 others. His voice cracked as though he felt each name sticking in his throat like fish bones. Arya's tears came hot, angry. She wanted to scream that it should have been her, that she ought have stood and fought, but the words twisted. Instead, she stepped forward and pressed the dagger back into Tomard's hand. Teach me more, she said. Next time I won't hide. Tomard searched her face, finding no jest, and nodded once. The purple harbor of Braavos fanned open beneath dawnlight 2 weeks later, a half-circle of quays bustling with brant-billed barges and towering Lorcia ships. Masts rose like a forest of dead pines. Gulls traced quick white loops above. Painted hulls glittered, turquoise, indigo, blood red. At the center, the Titan's shadow fell vast across water, while the Colossus itself watched from far strait, eyes alive with witchfire even by day. Arya leaned over the forecastle rail, breath caught. She saw bridges arcing from island to island, each carved in a new language. Here a leaping dolphin, there a mask with horns of jet. She heard bells, so many bells, each ringing a different note. All Sirio's stories were true, yet none quite large enough. On the quay waited 2 figures in robes of mottled gray and white. One tall, one bent. Their hoods shadowed their faces. Tomard hailed them with the code Maester Luwin had provided. The taller bowed, palm to chest. They guided proud maiden to birth, then led Arya and her escort through curving alleys where colored glass lanterns swam with fish shapes painted inside. The house of black and white rose before them at the edge of a wide square. Its doors, one ebony, one weirwood pale, loomed high. Within the courtyard, fragrant smoke of burning cedar drifted. Tomard halted, uneasy. "I know little of these priests," he murmured, "but Lord Stark trusts them." He laid a rough hand on Arya's shoulder. "Send word if aught threatens. We remain at the Golden Anchor Inn until we sail home." Arya nodded, stepping to the white door. It opened soundlessly. A hall of statues greeted her. Serene faces, snarling titans, goat-headed gods. She followed the bent priest down silent corridors until they entered a round chamber lit by floating candles. There, a pool lay still as black mirror. On its surface danced the reflections of flames set in sconces high overhead. The priest slipped back his hood, revealing not a face but a mask half white, half black. His voice was soft, without accent. "Who are you, child?" "Arya of House Stark." Her voice sounded small. She swallowed. "I came to learn the water dance." The mask inclined. "In Braavos, a name may be a door or a chain. Which will yours be?" Arya frowned, unsure. "I only want to be myself. No lady, no courtesy cage." "Then you must learn which self to keep, which to cast into the sea." He gestured. "Come." The many-faced god welcomes all, and the water teaches those who listen. She followed as he glided toward a low arch inside. The chamber opened onto a training hall where thin rapiers hung beside straw dummies. A quiet figure in purple motley waited, wooden practice blade balanced across slim palms. When the horsehair tassel at the hilt swung, Arya felt her heartbeat echo the rhythm. The priest's mask shone in candle glow. "This is Syrio Farrell," he said. "He is not the first sword. He is a lesson kept secret across seas." Syrio bowed deep, hair graying at the temples. "A girl has quick feet," he said, smiling. "A girl has quicker eyes. But can she drink from the tide and not drown?" Arya squared her shoulders, remembering ice and fire in her father's gaze. Rafe's blood on sea-soaked planks, Jon's gift gloves. "I can try," she whispered. Syrio tossed her a wooden blade. She snatched it mid-air. The wood felt warm, alive, as though the tree it had been still remembered the sun. She inhaled, letting the breath fill every corner of her chest. Then she stepped onto the sand-dust floor. Back in Winterfell, ravens carried news of Arya's safe arrival. Ned exhaled relief, yet it cooled quickly under the northern winds that battered the battlements. Robert's court demanded his departure at fortnight's end. In those days, the gods would become Ned's haven. He walked the green dream quiet, seeking words carved in heart tree bark he could not read. He spoke aloud to silent faces. Lyanna, Benjen, Ricard. He asked forgiveness for sending a daughter across the world. The weirwood only wept red sap slower than blood, offering neither judgment nor grace. One crisp dawn, Maester Luwin approached with scroll in hand, sealed with Braavosi purple wax. Ned broke it with trembling thumb. The letter was brief, neat, each line a dagger in comprehension. Lord Stark, your daughter trains with devotion. She asks after the faces of wolves and springs. She prospers. Know this. Rumor reaches Braavos that the Lion Queen grows restless. She seeds the court with whispers of bastards and broken vows. Winter may come sooner than even the North expects. Keep your sword sharp. The water dances in every shadow. A friend. Ned closed his eyes. He smelled snow on the wind. His father's voice seemed to echo across years. When the snows fall and the white winds blow, the lone wolf dies, but the pack survives. But the pack was scattered. Still he must ride south, leaving ghosts in the castle and children in the claws of fate. His only solace was the thought of Arya, sword in hand beneath foreign moons, learning to dance between raindrops. If winter fell tomorrow, perhaps one fierce small wolf might yet find her way through. 3 moons turned above Braavos. Each day Arya rose before dawn, dipping hands in cold canal water, recalling Winterfell's hot springs and the mossy scent of Godswood. Syrio taught footwork first, sliding steps that kept her balance on narrow planks floating atop the training pool. When she mastered those, he added rhythm. Clap, step, thrust. Clap, spin, deflect. If she missed a clap, the plank tilted and she splashed into water so frigid it bit bone. Laughter echoed from polished walls, but Syrio never mocked, only smiled, as though falling were an answer to an unspoken riddle. By dusk she traced the city. Tomard's men shadowed discreetly, less as guards now than watchful uncles. They let her barter for pears at the purple market, let her follow musicians over moonstone bridges, let her dangle legs above the moon pool where lovers tossed coins for luck. She listened to tongues sliding between Valyrian and Summer Island song, learning curses first, polite words second. Yet not every lesson was sweet. In the house, she glimpsed the quiet rooms, where the priests gave the gift of mercy to the sick. She smelled the oils they used, fragrant and final. One eve a gaunt boy her age eyed at her from a pallet, blue lips cracking. Next dawn the pallet lay empty, sheets folded neat. Arya carried that smile like a pebble in her boot, small but ever-pressing. When the kindly priest, she called him the Mask, for he never named himself, saw her troubled brow, he placed 2 coins in her palm, 1 iron, 1 copper. Life weighs the same as death, he said. The water that quenches thirst can drown ships. Learn the balance, little wolf. She slept that night clutching both coins, dreaming of 2 moons balancing a bridge of starlight. Syrio awoke her at dawn by tapping the roof beam with a stick. You think too hard, he chided. Water flows, it never asks where to go. He tossed her a wooden sword shorter than the last. A wolf grows, teeth grow sharper. Today we test bite. Their sparring grew faster. The rapiers slap a music only the quick could hear. Arya's muscles burned, yet her mind felt like river ice breaking at thaw, rushing free. Each step became instinct. When Syrio thrust, she was not there. When Syrio fainted, she saw through. At dusk she collapsed onto the warm stone terrace, chest heaving, and for the first time since leaving Winterfell she laughed. Too tired for tears, too alive for fear. Across the narrow sea, King's Landing simmered. Streets stank of night soil and rotted orphans thrown to gulls. Courts buzzed with rumors of royal bastards, and the Red Keep's small council meetings turned venomous. Ned sat among them, jaw clenched as Littlefinger spun word webs and Varys floated rumors like scented smoke. Yet part of Ned's mind drifted always to Arya, picturing her on moonlit rooftops, knife in boot. He wrote her when he could, letters thick with news of Sansa's betrothal to the Crown Prince, of Bran's climbing mishap, paralyzed now or near to it, and of Jon's departure for the Wall. But he softened cruel truths, burying his own doubts behind flourishes. King Robert misses the hunt. The city grows hotter than Dragonback. Your sisters send love. He never spoke of Cersei's cold smirk, or the knife placed at his throat by shadows wearing smiles. Her replies came folded in sailcloth, borne by Braavosi merchanters. I learned fast. Tomard lost in dice again. Syrio says a sword must know its purpose. The city smells of fish guts. I miss the snow. She drew wolves in the margins, their backs arched mid-leap. One night Ned traced one wolf's curve, heart aching. He wondered what purpose his own sword served now, in a den of lions where truth drew blood. When he sheathed the letter, he whispered, "Stay hidden, little wolf. The dance here grows deadly." The dance began to turn in Braavos as well. On a rainy morning, Arya and Syrio crossed the Bridge of Lanterns to spar within the old turtle market, now abandoned for a newer bazaar. The air smelled of rusted iron and seaweed. Tomard's men followed at a distance. Syrio set wooden targets between empty stalls, telling Arya to strike each in sequence without touching ground. She scrambled across ropes and up crates, leaping between tilting beams. Her landing on the final post sent dust coughing into the air. As it cleared, she saw three shapes blocking the archway. Men in leather vests, swords naked and ready. Their accents when they spoke were Westerosi, not Stark bannermen nor Lannister gold cloaks, but Sells words. The middle man, tall with scarred lip, pointed at Arya. "Sells for coin, does she? Half the purse if unharmed." Tomard's shout echoed.
"Stil ran."
Arya jumped down, rolling beside Syrio. He drew his own real blade, water-thin, edges dark as shadow. His smile vanished, eyes turning to black mirrors. "Stay behind me," he told Arya, voice calm as harbor mist. The first Sells word lunged. Syrio sidestepped, flicking the blades flat across the man's throat. Blood sprayed. Arya's breath snagged. The Sells word dropped, gurgling. Another swung overhead. Syrio parried, riposte slipping under ribs. Footsteps thundered as Tomard's men arrived, clashing with remaining attackers. Arya backed against a toppled stall, with splintered inches from her as a dagger thunked in. She yanked it free on instinct, whirling. A blonde woman lunged at her, lower and faster than Arya expected. Arya blocked with the stolen dagger, arms jolting from the force. Needle's mantra sang, left foot light, eyes on target, pointy end. She ducked under the woman's slash, stabbed up. The point grated between mail rings and sliding ribs. The woman's breath wafted out, eyes wide. Arya twisted free, stumbled back. The Sells word fell, mouth working soundless. Silence crashed. Bodies sprawled across fish-scale mosaics. Tomard wiped his sword, face ashen. Syrio examined Arya's trembling hands. "Good," he said softly. "Better to shake now than later." "Who were they?" Arya whispered. "Hunters," Syrio answered. "Paid to collect a wolf cub. One must wonder who holds the leash." He searched the alleys, scanning rooftops, then beckoned Arya. "We leave this place. The city may hide us, but only if we learn her true face." They fled through rain-slick labyrinths, Tomard's men forming ring around them. When they reached the house of black and white, the mask awaited, candlelight making twin flames in each eye-hole of the half-face. He inclined his head. "A game moves across seas," he murmured. "Pieces shift. A lioness swipes. A wolf dodges. Yet tides turn." Arya's voice cracked. "Lions again? Perhaps. Perhaps stags. In Braavos, motives wear many skins." The mask's fingers trailed the ebony door. "You may stay, child, learn deeper dances, or sail away to new shadows." Arya thought of Winterfell's snow, of Bran in bed, of Sansa trapped with a smiling prince. She remembered her father's handwriting, "Stay hidden," and felt anger coil. "I will stay," she said. "I will learn every face the water reflects, then choose which one bites." The mask's shoulders shook, laughter, or perhaps sorrow. He stepped aside, letting her pass into the Hall of Statues once more. In King's Landing, Ned garnered proof of Joffrey's illegitimacy and confronted Cersei in the Godswood of the Red Keep. The Queen's green eyes glinted like serpent scales. "When you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die," she warned. Ned thought of Braavos' water dancers, of Arya balancing on narrow planks. He answered, "There is also honor." But honor, he knew, was a blade none feared here. He dispatched 2 letters that night. one to Stannis, rightful heir, the other to Braavos. The second bore only 4 words. The storm hits soon. Run. Then he burned his cipher key, dousing the ashes in arbor red. He slept little, sword propped beside the bed like an old friend. Morning came with clatter of mail. Gold cloaks, now bought by Littlefinger, surrounded the Tower of the Hand. Swords drawn, they took Ned prisoner. Outside, bells tolled an alarm, yet none rallied. Inside the Red Keep, Joffrey seated himself upon twisted iron and bellowed for traitors' heads. The city held its breath, waiting for the axe to fall. Ned knelt amid revolting crowd chants, hands bound, yet his spirit drifted east, across leagues of open sea, until it found a small girl in a candlelit hall. She spun wooden blade in circles within circles, stepping between shadows cast by statues of forgotten gods. Each step was silence, each silence a prayer. If he died now, at least one wolf still roamed free. That same dawn in Braavos, Arya woke before dawn, heart racing though she knew not why. She slipped from her cot, padded barefoot to the courtyard pool. Water mirrored a sliver moon and a single early star. As she watched, the star winked out. A chill fell. Syrio appeared behind her, cloak wrapped tight. "Feel the wind," he said. "It tastes of winter steel." She nodded. "Something's wrong." "Then we prepare." He handed her a real sword, lighter than the practice rapiers but sharper than any needle. "Name her later. Now we dance." They practiced until sweat froze on skin, until dawn paled the sky above the Titan. Only then did the mask arrive with a raven perched on his wrist. The scroll bound to its leg bore a seal crushed in haste. He read it, eyes unreadable behind the mask, then turned to Arya. "The storm is here," he said. "The wolf's den burns. Those who wish to leave Braavos must leave tonight." Arya clutched the sword. "Where do we go?" "North," Syrio said quietly. "Home." Tomard's face hardened. The men stood ready. Ships could be bought, coin could pave seas. Yet Arya knew north was not just distance. It was a beating heart calling her back. She looked at the mask. "Will you come?" "This house keeps its own counsel," he replied. "But a debt is owed, and perhaps one day collected. Carry the coin." He pressed the iron disc into her palm. "Speak the words when needed." Arya closed fingers around metal. She felt its weight, but also its promise. Then she sheathed her new blade, turned to Tomard. "Let's go." Voice steady. No time for fear now. They passed through alley gloom, crossing bridges where lanterns fizzled in fog. At the Purple Harbor, they found a Stormlands cog readying sails for Pentos. Gold changed hands. The captain agreed to ferry them north once business finished. Sooner, if coin doubled. Tomard doubled it. Men loaded barrels. Gulls screamed overhead, sensing tragedy sown into the wind. As proud maiden's sister ship Dawn Runner slipped from the quay, Arya stood at the stern, watching the Titan shrink. She touched the iron coin to her lips, whispering, "Vala Morgulis," though she did not yet know the meaning. Syrio touched the coin next, whispering something she could not hear over the waves. The ship turned west. Behind them, Braavos faded into silver mist. Ahead, the horizon lay flat and wide, but Arya felt mountains rising in her chest. The mountains of home, of Winterfell. She did not know if her father still lived, or Bran, or even Jon on his cold wall. But she would carve a path through whatever forest of knives lay between them. She would dance across the blades. She closed her eyes, breathing salt and memory. When she opened them, she was no longer a girl hiding under tables. She was water, she was wolf, she was steel. And steel would not break. The voyage stretched over restless weeks. Each noon, Syrio drilled her on deck. She practiced during storms, feet skidding on rain-slick planks, learning to feel the ship's heartbeat. At night, she whispered to the moon, words of Winterfell, promises of return. Tomard shared tales of the north. The men sang soft dirges of home. Through it all, Arya's sword, she named it Sea Skimmer, gleamed in torchlight, hunger kept in check. One cold dusk dolphins leapt alongside, silver arcs over black. Syrio pointed. Better dancers than any Braavosi. Learn from them. They leap, they breathe, they dive. Arya mimicked the motion, feet shifting light. Even grief felt lighter mid-ocean. But as they neared Pentos, news filtered from passing merchant galleys. Eddard Stark condemned, traitor to the crown. King's Landing thrums with riots. Lannister banners march on the riverlands. Arya swallowed each word like frost. That night she sat amid coils of rope, staring at stars. Tomard crouched beside her. Words travel faster than truth, he said gently. But truth can die, she answered. And lies can kill. We reach Pentos soon. From there, maybe Myrish traders will take us home. His voice held hope's brittle edge. Syrio joined them, silent until the waves slapped Hull in steady rhythm. Dawn Runner stops here, he said. I remain. Arya jerked her head, protest forming, but he raised a hand. The Braavosi fear Lannister coin. One old sword may hide better in Pentos' shadows. You, little wolf, must keep moving. Her throat closed. I'll see you again. Perhaps. Water makes many paths to the sea. She hugged him, awkward, fierce. He smelled of cedar and sea salt. When they parted, tears blurred the deck for a breath. Syrio bowed. Remember, fear cuts deeper than swords. She nodded, wiping cheeks. Then I will never fear. He smiled, half sad. Even a wolf fears, but a wolf keeps running. He tapped the sword at her belt. Run, Arya Stark. They secured passage north aboard the Carrick Maiden's Fury under a false name. Arya of Sisterton, Tom Barr of the Trident, and 6 Sellswords seeking employ in White Harbor. Every port held spies. Secrecy was armor stronger than plate. They sailed past Tyrosh in a thick fog, slipped through Lyssa's azure straits at dusk, and braved storms off stepstones that tore one mast in half. During the worst tempest, lightning lit the world. Arya tied herself to the railing, waves slamming cold fists against her, wind howling like direwolves. She laughed, throat raw, feeling alive in a way Winterfell never taught. Tomard shouted her inside, but she clung tighter. When the storm broke, dawn bruised purple, and Arya stood drenched, smiling. Fear cut deeper than swords, but she bled no fear now. Far away, in the red keep's black cells, Eddard Stark shivered, feverish from weeks in darkness. Memory swam before him. Lyanna on a bed of blood, Robert's laughter, Arya leaping over balustrades, Bran's face broken. He prayed to old gods and knew for his children's safety. When Varys slithered in, whispering of bargains, confess treason, take the black and live. Ned saw only Arya's wolf drawings and agreed, if it might spare them. But kings were fickle. Ned's fate would hinge on whims, and rumors left no place untouched. At sea, Maiden's Fury veered west past the Shield Islands, hugging calmer waters. There, a patrol galley flying golden krakens approached. Long reach of Lannister coin once more. Tomard's men prepared for battle, but the galley sheered off, uninterested in a low-cargo vessel. They continued north. Arya dreamed that night of a red fountain bubbling blood. She woke screaming into wind. Tomard calmed her, promising safe harbor soon. Yet each league brought new dread. What if Winterfell already burned? What if Sansa lay dead? Bran forgotten? What if no home awaited? She sharpened sea skimmer until dawn. At White Harbor, rumors flew wild as gulls. Ned Stark dead by traitor's blade, Sansa prisoner in the south, Robb marshalling bannermen. Arya felt the world tilt. Tomard tightened formation, guiding her through crowds. Ships bound for Eastwatch begged coin. Sellswords hired to Riverlands boasted of battles. They found Lady Shireen, a northern trading carrack sailing upriver to Moat Cailin. Captain Wool refused passage until Tomard tipped a purse of silver direwolves. 3 days upriver, they passed fields turned to camps. Karstark men sharpening axes, old men forging pikes. The north rose like a bear roused from hibernation. Arya's heart quickened. Home pulled, fierce and painful. At Moat Cailin, Robb's outriders greeted them with suspicion until Arya stepped forward, hood down. Gray wind trotted from tents, muzzle snuffling her palm, tail whipping. Robb emerged, taller, beard sprouting. His hug lifted her from earth. "Little sister," he choked. She wept then, the tears she'd hoarded. Tomard's men bowed as Robb thanked them. They told of Braavos, of Lannister hunters. Robb's jaw clenched. "If they cross into the north, they'll answer to me." He led Arya to the command tent. Maps spanned the table, blue stones marking Fry crossings, red stones lion hosts. Catelyn entered, face-lined yet resolute. She crushed Arya to her heart, whispers lost in hair. For a moment, Winterfell's snow seemed only a breath away, but news darkened the reunion. Maester Luwin's last raven carried word of Ned's execution atop Baelor's September. Arya felt something inside her fold neatly, like parchment burned to ash. No tears came, only stillness and a cold clarity. Robb swore vengeance, voice raw. Catelyn's eyes turned to ice. Arya touched Seaskimmer's hilt. Sirio's words echoed. Fear cuts deeper than swords. She would not fear. She would cut. That night, beneath towers gutted by time, Arya knelt beside the King's Road, moonlit reeds rustling. She whispered the names of every soul she would never forget. Joffrey, Cersei, Island Payne, the hound who bore her father's sword, Tywin Lannister who paid. Each name a step in a dance yet to come. She rose, eyes fixed on the south. Winter might be coming, but so was Wolf's vengeance. Wind stirred her braids, carrying the scent of pine and far-off snows. For the first time since leaving Winterfell, Arya felt truly north again. Yet she knew her road would not end here, not until each name fell silent. She gripped her sword, breathing slow. The night around her seemed to hold its breath, as though listening. In the distance, a lone direwolf howled. Arya listened, and when the echo faded, she whispered one promise: to father lost, to brothers far, to the cold gods of stone and shadow. I will keep running. The rain began the second night after Arya's return to the north, and it fell with the slow, patient persistence of a mason laying mortar. Drip by measured drip, never harsh, never ceasing. Tents bowed beneath the weight of it. Cookfires spat weak sparks, trying and failing to turn damp kindling into flame. Somewhere beyond the outer palisades of Moat Cailin, a lone owl's hoot echoed through the wet hush, then died in the reeds. The world felt wrapped in wool, soundless, waiting. Inside Robb Stark's command tent, a single lantern burned, its wick trimmed low. The canvas walls trembled with wind, casting the lantern's glow across a table strewn with river maps, crimson wax seals, and curling raven feathers. Robb stood bent over the table, forearms braced against hewn oak, brow furrowed. His auburn hair, longer now, pulled back in a leather tie, looked almost black in the lantern's amber light. Beside him, Catelyn sat on a folding chair, stitching unseen threads into a square of cloth she held tight in calloused fingers, each jab of her needle as precise as a knight's lance finding chinked mail. Arya waited at the tent's entrance, cloak dripping, water running down her cheeks in rivulets. She breathed through her nose, tasting the must of wet canvas and lamp oil. Ghost padded silently at her side. The dire wolf had followed her since she'd arrived, shadow and sentinel both. His red eyes caught the lantern glow each time he turned toward her, as though he measured her heartbeat in the flicker. Robb looked up, his face softened. "Arya?" he murmured, and the words seemed to thaw the hush. He motioned her forward. "Mother says you've yet to eat." "I'm not hungry." The lie felt clumsy. Her stomach had growled since before dusk, but she could not empty the knot of thoughts long enough to fill it with stew. Catelyn's eyes lifted from her stitching. They were rimmed pink but clear. "A soldier marches on a full belly," she said in the tone she once reserved for instructing Bran on posture or Sansa on etiquette. "I'm not a soldier," Arya answered, shrugging off her cloak. Rain spattered onto the rugs. Ghost shook water from his pelt, then settled by the lantern's base, chin on paws. Robb straightened, stepping around the table to rest a hand on Arya's shoulder. The pressure was gentle but anchored. "You will be if that's what you choose." he said. "But soldier or no, you need strength. See, warm yourself." He guided her to a camp stool near a brazier glowing faintly with coals. Catelyn set aside her sewing, now discernible as the direwolf sigil, white thread on gray, then crossed to a lidded kettle and poured steaming broth into a wooden bowl. The aroma rose. Onion, carrot, borscht. Arya's hunger twitched awake. She accepted the bowl, fingers tight around its warmth, but she kept her eyes on Ghost instead of her mother's face. There was too much there. Grief, pride, relief, sorrow, for her to shoulder just now. Rain drummed louder against canvas. Catelyn drew her shawl closer. "We break camp in 3 days," she said, returning to her chair. "The bannermen have begun arriving from Torrens Square. Tallheart brought 700 foot and 200 horse. Glover marches from Deepwood Motte with twice that. And Karstark's host reached the causeway this morning," Robb added, pointing to a blue-painted block placed at the northern edge of the map. "For 1,000 spears. Once we unite, we'll number near 20,000. Enough to cross the Twins with an even bargain." Arya sipped broth. Heat tracked down her throat, curling in her belly like a small sun. "You'll ask Lord Frey to open his bridge," she said. "Will he?" Robb gave a half-smile, wary. "If he values his throat more than his pride." He tapped the bridge etched in charcoal on the map. "The Twins pinch the Green Fork like a fist. Without it, we'd need weeks to ford the river elsewhere. The Lion won't gift us that time." The Lion. The word tasted of blood and iron to Arya. She imagined Joffrey's smug sneer above Baelor's steps, imagined Island Payne's blank eyes, the silver flash of ice severing her father's voice from breath. She gulped more broth, scalding her tongue so rage wouldn't blister her thoughts. Robb noted the tremor in her grip. "We'll reach them," he said softly. "Every one on your list." Arya glanced up, startled. They had spoken little of her list since the night she'd whispered names into reeds. Yet Robb seemed to know. Perhaps he'd overheard as she stood by Ghost, murmuring those names to the moon, or perhaps he simply understood what any Stark heart would crave when blood cried for blood. She nodded once, not trusting her voice. Catelyn's needle resumed its steady heartbeat. "Before crossing, we must hone every blade," she said, "and stave the men's hunger. The Freys will raise tolls once they spy our banners. We'll pay less with a lighter train." Robb grunted assent, then looked to Arya again. "Syrio taught you the Braavosi dance. Tomard swears you can score a dummy's eye at 10 paces with a throwing blade." Arya lifted a shoulder, half shrug, half thanks. "A dummy's eye doesn't dodge." "True, but scouts need more than good aim." He reached to the map's lower edge, tapping the swirl representing the northern bogs. "These mires run thick. Small, unseen feet can cross where cavalry drowns. I have a task if you'll take it." "Tell me." Robb fetched a slim parchment strip, the ink still glossy. "Maester Luwin copied this from Lord Bolton's latest raven. It's cipher to his field captains. I'd deliver it myself, but 30 leagues of swamp would slow the host. You, though." Arya's pulse quickened. She read the parchment. A lattice of sigils marking supply caches, minor lords pledging fealty, safe farmsteads. "You want me to ride ahead. Ride and walk." Robb's eyes were steady. "Take 3 of Tomard's men. Reach Bolton's van at the Bar Rollins. Give him this, and bring back what rumors you can sniff." Catelyn opened her mouth, worry etched in the lines around it, but Robb raised a hand gently. "She won't go alone, Mother." Arya wiped her lips on the sleeve of her jerkin. "I'll go tonight." "Dawn," Catelyn interjected. "Not in this storm." Arya inclined her head, conceding. "At dawn, then." Robb grasped her forearm, the northern clasp. "The north rides with you," he said. The rain eased near sunrise, tapering to a mist that clung in silver beads along pine needles and spiderwebs strung between reeds. Arya stood at the edge of camp beside 3 riders. Halmallen, big-shouldered and quiet. Bara, a wiry archer whose laugh cracked like dry twigs. And Dale, youngest of the guards, face still soft with downy stubble but eyes flinty. Tomard had meant to go, Yet Lord Rickard Karstark wished him as liaison, so the choice had fallen to these three. Ghost paced restlessly as Arya tightened sea skimmers scabbard across her back. The direwolf whined, brushed his head under her fist. "Stay," she whispered. He butted her hand once more, then loped to the perimeter where other direwolf, Grey Wind, trotted sentinel. Together they watched. Horses snorted plumes into dawn. Arya mounted a dappled mare named River, chosen for her sure footing. The quartet turned south onto the causeway. A thin ribbon of packed earth elevated above sodden bog. Black pools yawned on either side, some reflecting sunrise, others choked with algae so dark they looked bottomless. At first they rode in silence, hooves squelching softly. By midday, the path shrank to a twisting spine of turf. Hal dismounted to lead his horse along a rotten plank bridge. Arya followed, River's ears flicking at croaks of unseen frogs. Bara chuckled. If the krakens knew we crept like mice, they'd leave their seas for easier plunder.
No kraken like smooth, dale mater.
Arya scanned cattails waving in sluggish breeze. Every rustle felt potential eyes. Sirio's lessons hummed inside her. The world was light and shadow, breath and hush. Listen for the lull in sound before a blade glints. They made camp that night atop a mound of dry ground, ringed by young birches. Dale coaxed a cook fire, shielding sparks with his cloak. Bara strung a line for wet socks. Arya sat with her back against a stump, sharpening sea skimmer. Each stroke of whetstone down the narrow blade sang faintly.
How chewet salted boar.
You ever crossed these mires before, little wolf? Once with John, Arya replied, though truthfully they'd strayed only into the northernmost reaches, chasing summer fireflies. They'd lain on their backs counting stars until dawn and pretended the reeds were towers. The memory felt worlds away, but she clung to it like flint inside leather. A spark waiting. Keep to the crossing stones, Hal advised.
Bog madrs swallow careless boots.
And men. And horses. Bara spat a bone into the fire. Superstitions. Mud's only mud. Hal huffed but smiled. The warmth between them eased Arya's shoulders. She finished sharpening, oiled the blade, and lay with cloak drawn high. Cypress sap smoke drifted skyward, curling into the clear night where clouds held back, as though the very sky paused to consider the north's oncoming fury. At dawn, mist shrouded vision to a few horse lengths. They rode single file. Cattails brushed Arya's knees. Spider silk caught in her eyelashes. She blinked, remembering Sirio's voice. A fencer must see always, even when eyes are closed. She half closed them, trusting River's stride, listening. The faintest drip, splash. She held up a fist. Riders stopped. The mist rippled ahead, parted to reveal a rowboat wedged on a sedge hummock, its prow battered, 2 oars adrift. Hal dismounted, inspected rust on the hull. Recent, he murmured. Freshwater rust blooms bright at first rain. He scanned the fog. But why row this deep? Dale knocked an arrow. Bara slipped into reeds, vanishing soundlessly, a ghost among ghosts. Minutes crawled. Then Bara's whistle, soft croak of a marsh lark. Safe. They pressed on, now slower, eyes prying the mist for silhouettes. By mid-morning, the causeway widened and the ground firmed. Scrub pines gave way to pebble ridges, then rolling heath. Wolves howled distantly, not dire wolves but lean graze hunting hares. Arya's heart quickened at the sound. She whispered a silent greeting. Near noon they reached a crumbled tower half swallowed by ivy. The Barrow Kings had once raised burial mounds here. Now only wind reigned. Dale scouted the tower's base. Tracks, he called. Arya joined him, kneeling. Print of boot heel, deep, recent. Hal examined the earth. 2 days old, he guessed. Heading east. Bolton's host marches west, Arya said. Scouts, then. Bara scanned the horizon. Could be ours, could be lions. Arya unsheathed sea skimmer a finger's pan. Her reflection in the blade looked ghost pale. Either way, we move. They reached the Bar Rollins at dusk on the 3rd day. Candlelit tents dotted the heath like fireflies frozen in amber. Stark banners snapped alongside flayed man sigils. Bolton men. Hal hailed sentries. Word of Robb's seal one swift passage. The guards led them to a maroon pavilion where Lord Roose Bolton sat at a small writing desk, ink-stained quill in hand, face expressionless. He looked up when Arya entered, eyes pale as an overcast sky. "Lady Arya," he murmured, voice soft as moth wings. "Your presence honors this dreary field." She offered the parchment. From Robb, updates and requests. Bolton read swiftly, eyes flicking lines with bird-like precision, then folded the strip, tucking it into his sleeve. "My captains will be pleased. Stores along the Barrow Lake shall feed half the host." He rose. His pale gaze lingered on Arya's sword. "May I?" She hesitated, then angled the blade toward him, hilt first. Bolton balanced it lightly across his palm, tested the flex. Braavosi steel. Remarkable. He pressed a thumb along the edge, drawing the faintest bead of red. He smiled thinly. "Cuts deep." Arya reclaimed the sword, wiping imaginary stain with her cloak. "It serves." Lord Roose offered lodging, 3 cots in a supply tent. Arya declined, preferring open sky. They pitched small tents at camp's perimeter. That night, fires crackled, sending embers into a wind heavy with storm scent yet to come. Soldiers played dice. Others sharpened spears. Arya walked between rows, absorbing murmurs. Talk of lion ravages along Red Fork. Rumors of Tywin's lords burning villages. She carried those words like coins to spend later. Past midnight, she crouched by the ashes of a dying cook fire, carving a circle in soot. Inside she wrote each rumor, tapping patterns learned in Braavos to remember. Tywin at Harroway, Ser Adam Marbrand raiding, Fry Raven silent. When her list ended, she drew names around the outer rim, her names, each letter etched with the point of a charred stick, shining silver under moonlight. She did not hear Roose approach until his shadow covered the circle. She rose, hand on sea skimmer. He studied the soot letters. "A litany," he mused. "Of death or memory?" "Both," Arya said, voice flat. Bolton's smile did not reach Ice Eyes. "Beware becoming what you recite." She matched his gaze. "I recite to remember. I become what I decide." Roose inclined his head. Decisions weigh heavier than steel. He drifted away like smoke. Dawn broke brittle, frost limbing each blade of grass. Bolton's banners came down. Horns sounded. The vanguard rolled south. Arya and her 3 guards rode with a supply column, laden wagons creaking. She studied every crossroads, marking hedgerows where ambush might strike, counting abandoned farmsteads blackened by old fires. At midday, a boy of 10 sprinted from a thicket, waving a rag. Bara reined in, arrow half-drawn. The boy hollered frantic, "Riders!" For riders, male red as flame, half a league back. His eyes were wide, pupils swallowing brown. Hal tossed him a heel of bread. The boy devoured it, crumbs mixing with tears. Bolton's outriders confirmed the report. Scouts wearing Lannister crimson. Bolton ordered 2 columns to flank north while he pressed the vanguard toward Tallheart encampments. Arya sensed tension ripple like a struck wire. The north was done creeping. Here began the stalk. Near evening, crows gathered on fence posts. The outriders returned, dragging a single lion scout between them. The prisoner's cloak was torn, his cheek bloodied from a pommel strike. Bolton oversaw interrogation personally. Arya watched from the fringes. She expected torture. Flayed skin, Bolton's sigil come to life. But Roose merely asked 3 calm questions. Who commands King's Landing's garrison? Where lies Tywin's main host? Which houses ride for Harrenhal's defense? The scout spat curses. Bolton nodded once. A guard slit his throat with surgeon's efficiency. Blood fell like black wine onto dust. Bolton wiped his gloves, eyes unreadable. Answers, even silent, "Speak," he murmured to no one. Arya swallowed. The smell reminded her of Rafe's blood on ship planks, of woman's breath warm and fading in Braavos. She turned away before the corpse hit ground. Robb Stark's host reached the twins 5 days later. Arya rejoined with her reports, handing Robb parchment bristling with notes. Lion camps here, supply wagons there, whispers of Tywin's men massing near Harrenhal. Robb's counsel poured over every line. Lord Greatjon Umber slapped a beefy palm on the map. We ride now, swift and silent, spear their bellies before they sup. Roose Bolton's voice floated cool. Speed sows chaos when seedbed tilled. Better cut supply lines, starve them from within. Catelyn listened, brow knitted. First we must cross, she reminded. All eyes shifted to the twins rising beyond the muddy bank. 2 massive stone keeps connected by arched bridge, towers looming like wary giants. Walder Frey met them in his audience hall, flanked by brood of sons, daughters, bastards. His smile bared yellowing teeth, like a lord glad to sell a favored deer. Robb stated his need. Frey named steep price. Marriage alliance, squire positions, rights to fish a mile downstream. Muttered protests rose behind Robb, but he met Walder's gaze. I accept, he said, voice steady. The great John looked ready to strangle someone, though he held his tongue. For now, Arya watched from the shadows of the hall's back row, slipping behind a timber pillar. Frey eyes crawled over banners, measuring advantage in every thread. She imagined moving among them, a wraith with sea skimmer's kiss. But Robb needed passage, not vengeance. She understood. That night, as northern columns streamed across the bridge, Arya sat astride River Midway. She looked down at green-black water swirling beneath arches. Lanterns hung on poles lit the torrent in fiery streaks. She thought of Braavos' canals, the Titan's shadow across harbor, the mask whispering Vala Morgulis. She whispered back, Vala Dohiris, words she'd heard Sirio's companions trade softly. All men must serve. She served the pack. On the far bank, fires blazed as the north made camp. Drums beat, echoing heartbeat across still marsh haunted by loons. Arya closed her eyes and listened. Hoofs thudding, steel clashing as sparring began. Laughter rolling, distant sobs, river rush. She counted each sound, sorting them like stones in her palm. Syrio had said, a dancer hears the music of life. Tonight, life pounded war's first note. She did not sleep until the third moon set. When she finally lay, dawn bled violet along eastern clouds. Dreams found her anyway. Ned's voice reciting Winterfell's litany. Field, hearth, wolf. Then breaking, replaced by a wet chop, a headsman's sword. She jerked awake, gasping. Ghost stood at her tent flap, hackles raised. A figure approached. Catelyn. The lantern she carried cast gold halos. May I enter? Arya shoved hair from her eyes. Yes. Catelyn settled on a bedroll opposite, lantern between them. I wondered if you dream as I do. Of father. Catelyn's throat bobbed. Yes, and of water flowing. Too fast to cross, too cold to swim. She toyed with the lantern's latch. I fear for you, for the fire you carry. Arya traced the stitching of her bedroll. Fire keeps me warm. Unchecked, it burns. Catelyn reached across, gently cupped Arya's hand. When this war is done, promise me you'll lay the sword down if only for a time. Arya wanted to say yes. She wanted to promise anything that might smooth the lines on her mother's face. But promises felt like chains. She withdrew her hand slowly. When the pack is safe, I will rest. Catelyn's eyes shone. She nodded, perhaps understanding that was the only vow Arya could make. She kissed Arya's brow, left the lantern, and slipped away into dawn, leaving the tent smelling faintly of rosewater and steel. Arya lay back, staring at canvas glowing purple with first light. The lantern's flame fluttered. She thought of chains and lists, of water dancing and owls' cries. She thought of the lion's roar echoing through red keepstones. She whispered each name again, softer than breath, letting them drift into the lantern's glow until they became sparks and vanished. Then she slept, dreamless. The northern host marched south in 2 columns. Robb leading cavalry along the western road toward Ashmark, Bolton's steering foot through the neck of Whispering would to bait Tywin's outriders. The plan balanced on secrecy. Ravens bore false routes. Scouts spread rumors of Starks digging in at Riverrun. Arya rode with Robb at first, scouting ahead by night, creeping into hamlets to overhear garrison boasts. Tomard's 3 men followed but kept distance. Even they found her footfalls too quiet to shadow. Near Maidenpool, she spied a lion patrol garrisoning an old mill. The men drank and diced, helmets askew. She dashed through wheat stubble, crawled under loose shutter, counted 15 men, 1 sergeant. She crept to rafters, noting stores, salted pork, river trout, for barrels of mead. She also saw a cage at the rear, inside a skinny woman clutching a babe. Lions laughed, placing bets on whose turn it was to taunt. Arya's pulse pounded. She could slip out unseen, report, or she could act. She weighed father's caution against Wolf's snarl. Needle's whisper answered. That night, clouds smothered moonlight. Arya returned with Bara and Dale. They slit sentry throats, dragged bodies into shadows. Arya scaled the rear wall, lowered rope for Bara. Inside, they moved like fog. Arya pressed Sea Skimmer through sleeping sergeant's neck. Bara drove dagger to heart of second. Dale loosed arrows from loft. Chaos erupted. Startled lions grabbed swords but found death at every shadow. The woman in cage screamed until Arya cut rope latch, hauled door wide. She pressed finger to lips, ushered her out. When last lion stood, cornered by Bara, Arya stepped between. The man trembled, sword rattling. She parried with Sea Skimmer, 3 strokes. On 4th, she disarmed him, blade tip at his throat. Names, she hissed, thinking of her list. Give me your name.
Esta mered ser Boras by water.
Not on her list, yet guilt coated his voice. She could kill him, but Sirio's lesson surfaced. Dead men tell 1 tale. Living men may tell 10. She instead slashed hamstring, left him screaming. Bara raised brow but said nothing. They burned lion banners, loaded a cart with pork and trout, then vanished into wheat. Robb's quartermasters praised the hall. The freed woman wept into Catelyn's arms, telling of lions who'd seized her husband for forced levies. Arya stood aside, cleaning Sea Skimmer. She felt neither pride nor shame, only an alert emptiness ready to fill with next move. Robb approached. You saved 2 lives at risk of 4. It felt right. Robb nodded. It was. He drew a small leather pouch from doublet. A reward. Inside lay 3 iron coins, Braavosi minted. I doubt Ser Boras will forget a wolf in the dark. He closed her fingers around the pouch. Neither will the men who march with me. That night, campfires crackled bright, morale high. Minstrels sang of the ghost of the mill, weaving rumor faster than crows. Arya lay listening to verses change. Now she was 10 feet tall. Now she wielded flaming sword, until laughter bubbled unbidden. She let it for once. War, however, cares little for songs. 2 days later, ravens brought grave news. Tywin had crushed Beric Dondarrion's band at Mummer's Ford, turning east toward Harrenhal. Worse, Jaime Lannister rode with 10,000 to Riverlands, threatening Riverrun. Robb's council argued late into night. Greatjon pressed, marching straight at Tywin. Roose counseled splitting forces, let Bolton. Harry Tywin while Robb swung west to relieve Riverrun. Catelyn's silence held weight. She asked only, which move saves more lives? Robb paced, fists clenched behind his back. At last he halted before the map, stabbed a finger over Riverrun. Our father's friend, Lord Hoster, is besieged. We march west. Bolton nodded curtly. Then give me the foot. I'll lure Tywin north of Blackwater. Bleed him. Robb agreed. The die-cast banners were rearranged at dawn. Arya watched columns shift like rivers diverging. She felt tugged between them, Robb's path and Bolton's shadows. In the end, she rode with Bolton's foot. Robb pressed a direwolf brooch into her hand. Carry our howl with you, he said. She clasped his wrist. I'll bring back lion pelts. They embraced tight, then parted. Marching with Bolton's host felt colder. The men seldom joked. their armor lacquered black, cloth crimson. Even campfires burned low. But Arya respected efficiency. They moved silent, covering leagues along forest trails where cartographers had never inked roads. Scouts reported Tywin striking camp near Harrenhal. Bolton ordered night march, torches hooded, to cross Red Fork at Twins of Stone, 2 moss-slick pylons bridging shallows. On second night, hoots of screech owls signaled scouts returning. They bore news. Tywin's outriders ahead, foraging. Bolton's mouth twitched. We shall sow confusion. He split force into 3 talons. Arya rode with the smallest, 300 men, archers, and light horse. At moonset, they crept toward a dusk-lit village hugging a willow-curved brook. Outriders camped there, fires bright, armor stacked. Bolton signaled. Arrows hissed. Tent canvas erupted in flames laced with pitch. Horses screamed, bolting. Outriders stumbled, blades half-drawn. Bolton's men fell on them like winter night bears. Arya wove through smoke, using shadows as stepping stones. She cut tether ropes on horse lines, sent mounts stampeding. She found a groom trying to calm a stallion. She flipped his dagger from belt and hamstrung him with single stroke. Everywhere, chaos. Bolton's banner flickered blood and beige under firelight. By dawn, the village smoldered, ash dancing on breeze. Tywin's outriders lay dead or fled. Bolton ordered wounded enemy tended only if they lasted an hour. Most did not. Arya watched, face blank. Inside, something quivered, like a string tugged too taut. Yet she refused to let it sound. Bolton approached, cloak shimmering damp crimson. You move well, he said, but you linger when the blade begs finish. Doubt. His pale eyes probed. I choose who dies. Arya's voice surprised even her, cold as well water. Bolton nodded. Choice is luxury.
Var strips luxuris.
Guard yours well. He tipped his head, perhaps a compliment, perhaps warning. They rode south, leaving husks for crows. Arya's list gained new names. Some she'd killed, some she spared, some she witnessed Bolton bleed. She etched each into memory's iron. 2 weeks later, ravens found Bolton near the Trident's fords. Robb had smashed Jaime at Whispering Wood, captured the Kingslayer. Arya's heart soared. She pictured Sansa freed, Joffrey sweating fear. Bolton allowed a small feast. Turnip stew thickened with stolen lion pork, mead infused with raspberry. Campfires flared higher than normal. Laughter even touched the flayed man ranks. That night, Bolton summoned Arya to his command tent. She entered wary, noting flicker of candles, subtle scent of myrrh. Bolton sat behind a writing desk, parchment spread like a patient on slab. Beside the desk lay a square wooden chest, lid ajar, silk within. I have correspondence, Bolton began, from King's Landing. Lord Tywin seeks parley for prisoners. His gaze slid to Arya. You, child, are valuable beyond coin. Wolf and lion both covet. Arya felt sea skimmer's weight at her hip. Prisoners are coin to trade. Bolton's smile ghosted. Precisely. I dispatch envoys at dawn to negotiate crossing rights near Harrenhal. They carry letters. I wish escort unseen. You. He opened the chest. Inside lay garments of rough-spun brown, large enough for Arya. Disguise as stable hand. Accompany envoys under name Eric Flower. Study Tywin's camp. Note numbers, morale. Arya stared at clothes. And if Tywin learns who I am, then war gains clarity. Bolton's tone was mild, a cleaver's edge hidden under velvet. But you are skilled. Do not let him learn. She thought of Robb's brooch, heavy in her pouch. I'll go, she said at last. When? Moments after moonset. Pack light. She dressed in stable-hand garb. Coarse tunic, patchy breeches. Mud-caked boots 2 sizes too big. She smeared soot in her hairline, braided it tight. Sea skimmer she wrapped in burlap, slung across back as tool. She left Tomard's men behind. Bolton decreed smaller group meant stealth. Only one guard, Ser Varlin, rode with her, escorting 4 clerks and 2 ravens in cages. They traveled under banners neutral, white field with green branch, a sigil of some minor house extinct 3 centuries. Tywin's scouts intercepted them midday near Harrenhal's burnt holdfast. A knight in gilded half-plate scrutinized papers, then waved them through to camp. A sprawl of pavilions bright as autumn leaves, bristling with pikes. Arya's pulse hammered as they entered. Every lion device sparked memory of father's fall. She kept chin down, eyes moving. She counted supply wagons, spotted blacksmith rings forging arrowheads, overheard quartermaster fretting forage low. She filed details, wearing blank servant face. The envoys were ushered toward a crimson tent larger than most. Arya tethered horses amid pickets, then slipped away, feigning need for water. She circled, noting guard shifts, for at each tent row, 1 sergeant by cook fires. She crouched behind a wagon, eavesdropping 2 cells word captains bicker about delayed pay. 1 cursed Tywin's coppers turning to promises. Arya smiled inwardly. Hungry cells words fought poorly. Late afternoon, ravens spiraled overhead. Tywin's heralds blew horns, summoning captains for council. Arya blended into a line of scullions carrying baskets. Inside the great command tent, she glimpsed Tywin Lannister seated at a field desk, armor off, pale lions embroidered on crimson doublet. His gaze flicked to each entrant, cold and assessing. He spoke quietly to an aide, who then bellowed orders. Discipline crackled. Arya's hand brushed Seaskimmer's hilt. 1 thrust across this linen aisle, 1 heartbeat, and father's killer would kneel before sword of justice. But a second heartbeat later, she'd be dead. She forced the thought down, reminded herself of Robb's cause, of Catelyn's plea. Serve the pack. She delivered bread baskets to trestle tables, only 5 yards from Tywin. His presence felt like bare breath, heavy, dangerous. When she turned, her boot slipped on spilled broth. She staggered, small stumble, but enough to jostle a wooden mug onto flagstones. Tywin's head swiveled, hawk swift, golden gaze pinning her. Silence thickened around that gaze like sap. Arya lowered eyes, murmured apology, mopped with cloth. Heart hammered ribs. Tywin studied her a long breath. Then he lifted parchment, dismissed her with a flick. She withdrew, blood roaring in ears. Outside, she exhaled, tasting bile. The sky had turned pewter. Drizzle began. She returned to horses, hands trembling. Ser Varlin approached with sealed satchel. Talks ended. Return. His face was unreadable. They rode out at dusk, escorted by 5 Lannister outriders. Rain slicked hair to Arya's skull. She scanned trees, searching for Bolton scouts to relieve escort. None appeared. Her mind replayed Tywin's gaze. Did he see? A stable hand stumble, nothing more. Yet doubt gnawed. Fear cut deeper than swords. They camped under Oaks miles north. Arya slept in patches. Every snap of twig jolted her. At dawn, outriders turned back.
Ser Varlin relaxed.
We're home soon. Near midday, still leagues from Bolton's vanguard. Hoofbeats thundered behind. Arya twisted in saddle. A plume of dust. Riders. 12, crimson-cloaked. Pursuit. Varlin cursed, spurred horse off path into pines. Arya followed, branches whipping. Lannisters shouted orders. Arrows hissed. 1 struck Arya's saddle, splitting leather near thigh. She veered left, zigzagging. Ahead, a ravine yawned, cluttered by fallen logs. Varlin risked jump. Horse cleared, landed but stumbled, throwing him. Arya pulled river up, dismounting as arrows thudded trunk. She grabbed Raven's satchel, slung it crossbody, crawled under logjam. Behind, Varlin tried to rise. An arrow pierced his back. He collapsed. Arya crushed urge to help. Lion boots crashed nearer. She wriggled deeper into tangled roots, mud coating face. She stilled, pressing cheek to sodden earth. Lannisters dismounted, searching. She heard their captains. Find the brat. Lord Tywin's orders. Hearts hammered in ears. She slowed breath, counting, praying to old gods and many-faced new. 1 boot scraped bark above her head. Another voice. Tracks vanish. Silence. Minutes dragged. Finally, retreating hoofbeats faded. She stayed frozen till dusk colors bled. Crawling free, she scanned woods, no movement. She retrieved sea skimmer, pried arrow from saddle, mounted river, then angled east, away from path, navigating under moonrise. That night, she found Bolton's pickets. Guards challenged, then cheered her survival. She recounted ambush. Bolton listened, steepling fingers. Tywin's suspects, he murmured. He eyed her like specimen. He'll hound until certainty. He studied satchel. Inside were letters of prisoner exchange. Lord Tywin values Jaime's freedom above gold, Bolton said. Robb must know. He commanded fastest riders to carry message west. Arya insisted on going. Bolton forbade. You draw lion eyes like blood in water. He assigned 2 guards to shadow her every step henceforth. That night, Arya lay awake, staring at stars burning white holes in black cloth. Fear tried to rise, but she remembered Syrio. Fear cuts deeper than swords. She unsheathed sea skimmer, letting starlight silver the edge. She recited her list. One new name joined. Ser Boras, though she'd spared him, mercy could wait. She added the Lannister captain who shouted orders, his voice etched in ear. She added Tywin again, inscribing his name darker. Then she whispered another promise. I will keep running, but I will never flee. A wolf howled distant, answer carrying across night hills. Arya closed eyes and let the sound root marrow to bone, an anchor of home. Robb received Bolton's riders near Middlefield 2 days before autumnal equinox. When he opened Tywin's proposals, Jaime for Ned's bones and hostages, his jaw tightened. He burned the letters, ash drifting like black snow. We hold the Kingslayer, he said, turning to lords assembled. He is our sword at their throats. Great John roared agreement. Catelyn's eyes narrowed, storm clouds gathering. But that debate waited. First, Robb wanted his sister safe. He sent word ordering Arya north to White Harbor, then by ship to Bear Island, far from war's jaws. Bolton delivered the Raven himself. Arya read it, emotions warring. Relief hidden inside frustration. Leave, after coming so far? That night, she sought Bolton's tent. Rain pattered steady. He studied her, candle casting his pale lids orange. You wish to ignore your king's command? I wish to serve it best. She laid hands on fold of map showing lance arcs around Harrenhal. Send me into their kitchens. Sew me into their banners. I'll bring whispers Robb needs. Bolton tapped map. You court capture. She courts advantage, a voice pronounced. Catelyn stepped in, cloak dripping. Her gaze moved between them. Robb sees threat. I see an edge. The lion hunts her. Let him chase scent while wolf snaps flank. Bolton's lip curled minutely, as if impressed. Sharp steel disguised as sewing needle. Catelyn faced Arya. But your safety matters to me more than tactics. Tell me true. Can you dance between their blades and not bleed? Arya remembered Tywin's eyes, remembered arrow splintering saddle. She thought of Ned's head on spike under sun. She met her mother's gaze. I can, Catelyn exhaled. Then we planned carefully. They forged a scheme. Arya would feign capture by mercenaries, be sold as kitchen urchin into Harrenhal, now Tywin's base. Bolton's contacts among Sellsword's arranged transaction. Arya's hair was cut ragged, face bruised with beetroot dye, wrists chafed by hemp rope. She practiced stooped shuffle. Speech thick with guttural accents gleaned from Vale miners she'd met years past. On the eve of departure, Robb rode under dark to Bolton's camp. He found Arya beside dying cookfire, Tomard's men asleep nearby. He dismounted, kneeling by her. Moonlight gilded his mailed shoulders. They tell me you go willingly, he said. Willing as ice melts in spring. He managed a smile. Father would hate this, which means it's likely smart. Arya's throat tightened. I'll send word. Ravens travel more freely than girls. Take this. He pressed something cool into her palm. Needle, wrapped in oiled cloth. Mikken reforged it from Winterfell stores. Arya unwrapped slender blade, tears blurring vision. I thought it lost. Nothing of ours is lost while we breathe, Robb said. He helped her buckle sheath along back under rags. Come home after. He kissed her brow, tasting soot. She watched him ride away, silhouette merging with tree-lean until only hoofbeats remained, echoing like drums. The next dawn, disguised and bound, Arya joined two Sellswords. One Bolton's man under false crest, one real brigand. As they rode south toward smoke-black banners of Harrenhal, Arya whispered to Needle along spine. Remember the pointy end. The blade seemed to hum, eager. She recalled Braavos' salt, Sea Skimmer's edge, ghost of Sirio's laughter, ghost of Ned's steady hand on her shoulder. She exhaled, stepping into the mask the world would grant. Rain began, soft and steady, erasing footprints behind. Ahead, the great burned towers of Harrenhal clawed heavy clouds, a wounded giant waiting. Arya's heart beat slow, sure. Fear cuts deepest, but fear had been flayed away. What remained was a wolf's quiet hunger, and a dance yet to be danced. She straightened, felt ropes bite, felt sword hidden like second spine. Then she smiled, small and secret, as the gates of Harrenhal yawned wide to swallow her whole. The dance had only just begun. The Sellsword called Rorik tightened the rope around Arya's wrists whenever the road ahead turned smooth, as though the absence of jolts might tempt her to wriggle free. She kept her head bowed and let the hemp rub fresh welts into skin already stained with boot polish and swamp mud. The disguise smelled of rank leather and smoke. It disguised the faint lavender soap still haunting her hair, a gift from Catelyn on the night before departure. The two other prisoners the Sellswords had gathered for show, a bent-spined potboy from Old Stones and a washerwoman with broken teeth, sat slumped in the wagon beside her, sharing the same slack-jawed exhaustion that passes for obedience. Their fear was as real as Arya's purpose, and she resented neither their silence nor their surreptitious sobs. They crested a low rise at midday, and the ruin of Harrenhal clawed the horizon. Even from miles off, its towers looked burnt out, the air above them shimmering like the heat haze that rises from a forge. Arya counted the 5 gargantuan keeps: Kingspire, Widows, Tower of Dread, Wailing, and Kingsflame, each with blackened crowns, each casting elongated shadows across dying fields. Tywin had moved his court to those shadows, as if some macabre notion of destiny drew lions to dead dragons' lair. She tasted soot on the wind and decided it was the castle's breath. Ahead, the first of Tywin's outer camps stretched in messy rings. Tar-smudged tents, paddocks of gaunt horses, cook fires smoldering beneath enormous kettles of barley and bone. Nearer the castle proper, the lines grew orderly. Crimson pavilions stitched with golden lions, supply pens fenced by wagon barriers, smithies hammering sparks from dawn to dusk while stable boys sprinted with buckets to quench the iron. Rorik's party clattered past a checkpoint where mailed guards merely glanced at their scribbled warrant. Mercenary contingent, South Lances, 2 thralls for sale, and waved them through. Coin greased eyes better than oil. Within the second ring of palisades, the crowds thickened. Short-term merchants hawked onions and stale wine to restless soldiers. Poets shouted verses promising kings landing victories. Crossbowmen wagered coppers on rat-kill counts in a straw pen. No one spared a thought for 3 fresh thralls dulled by road dust. That invisibility felt like a cloak Arya could wrap tight. They reached a long barracks shed east of the slag pit smithy. The air thrummed with mallets striking iron. The clang carried like thunder through rafters of split pine. Rorik halted the wagon, hopped down, and sauntered to a clerk lounging at the treasury kiosk. A thick-set man with a mole on his eyelid and quills bristling behind both ears. Gold changed hands while Arya studied the doors. One led deeper into quarters. Another yawned into a muddy yard where prisoners dragged buckets up and latrine slop down. A third, to the left, opened on a ladder descending into semi-darkness. The stink that rolled out reminded her of the ship bilges, only fouler. Names? The clerk barked without looking up. Rorik gave the potboy as Merrill, the washerwoman as Hannah, and Arya as Eric Flower. The clerk jotted the entries, then whistled for 2 jailers, men whose faces bore years of smoke ingrained in skin. They cut Arya's wristbands and immediately snapped fresh iron manacles in place. Cold metal bit bruises, and she inhaled sharply, hiding the wince by bowing lower. "This one to kitchens," the clerk told them, tapping Arya's line with the quill. "If she can peel a turnip, we'll keep her. If she steals a carrot, the headsman's block." They hauled her across the yard, past dung heaps steaming in weak sun. Inside the castle's belly, corridors wound like intestine. Low arches where ash fell in constant drizzle. Halls where wall sconces cast trembling halos of greasy light. Rats scurried along cracks wider than the King's Road. She glimpsed windows bricked by black glass, the result of dragon fire fusing stone centuries ago. Sometimes wind found a way and sighed through cracks, whispering half-heard screams. Heron's ghosts were said to roam nightly. Arya wondered if they minded the company of living lions. At last, they shoved her into the scullery. A vaulted chamber with scorch marks stitched up its walls like veins, and a ceiling melted into drooping stone that resembled stalactites. Iron kettles dangled from chains. Spits rotated geese over shallow charcoal trenches. Smoke curled around beams and traced the arch high above, forming a haze that stung the eyes. Dozens of children, mostly younger than Arya, chopped roots, scaled perch, scrubbed soot from cauldrons, and stirred thickish porridge the color of ditch water. Cooks, everyone bigger than hotter, strode between them swinging wooden spoons like cudgels. A sharp cry heralded each strike when a spoon collided with slow hands. The jailer pointed Arya to a barrel of parsnips. "Peel." He unlocked one wrist but chained the other to a ring in the table stump. She nodded, took the dull peeling knife, and set to work. Sirio's mantra repeated. One hand guides, one hand dances. Even peeling, she could practice footwork, rock forward, rock back, pivot, let reflex flow. Her ears drank conversation like sweet water. She learned that Lord Tywin's patience had been tried by elusive northern raiders torching his forage lines. That blame shifted hourly from Bolton phantoms to Brotherhood without banners to riverfolk rebels. That crossbow bolts were so scarce men were ordered to retrieve them from corpses. She memorized which quartermasters screamed loudest, which knights demanded extra pepper for stews, which tower housed the ravens. All while her knife skated parsnip skins into ribbons as thin as parchment flakes. When dusk settled, she'd peeled 2 barrels. Muscles screamed but refused to quake. The assistant head cook, a bald woman with arms like sausages named Dina, grunted approval. "Aye, quick fingers." She unlocked Arya, shoved a chipped bowl of congealed broth at her, and pointed to a straw-lined corner where scullion girls collapsed in heaps between shifts. Arya drank half the broth, saved the rest for the potboy Merrill who snored under a flour sack. She would need allies later and curled against the wall. Stone leached heat from her bones, but sleep found her nonetheless, quick as a sparrow hawk diving. She dreamed of the gods would pool, but the water was black steel, and her reflection bore no face. When she reached to touch it, the mirror shattered, scattering shards that fluttered upward like ravens. She woke with a start, sticky with sweat in the frigid hall, and discovered dawn creeping through the melted lattice high above. So began her days in Harrenhal. The rhythm settled quickly. Dawn bell, cauldron hall, parsnip or turnip or onion mountain. Midday slop, errand runs to the spice cellars, water carrying from cracked cistern lines. Night bell, collapse. Each moment she stored details. Guard passage at third bell, Weiss the understeward's penchant for counting knives before each shift, 16 bone-handled, 3 small. And each night she whispered them to herself as a bard rehearses lyrics. On the 4th day, a new voice joined scullery choir. Rasping, lilted with the braids of foreign coasts. The man called Jacqueline entered in irons, flanked by guards who cursed his grins. 2 others with him had iron collars too. One a big merman, the other a pockmarked youth with eyes like spoiled milk. They were condemned to the dungeons, but until cells were free they chained them in the corner adjacent to parsnip barrels. Jacqueline requested water in a tongue Arya half remembered from Braavos, the courtesy-laced accent of pirate docks. She brought him a wooden ladle when Dina's back turned. He drank, murmuring, "A girl helps strangers." She shrugged but filed his thanks. The three were left, ignored until opportunity would shape them. Meanwhile, Tywin at supper demanded a fresh lemon sauce for roasted quail, a delicacy nearly impossible when supplies dwindled. The Lord's table erupted in argument about lime shortages in Lys. Cooks cursed the whim, yet lemons arrived by Raven the next dusk, blitz dry, expensive as swords. Arya was dispatched to fetch them from the courtyard quartermaster's stall. There, she spotted Ser Amory Lorch receiving instructions about scouting river crossings. A chance snippet revealed that Tywin planned to break camp within a fortnight if the Brotherhood kept harrying. That night, Arya scratched words in parsnip skin she'd peeled in wide strips. Fortnight move, crossings, maidenpull. She folded the strip, placed it in the false bottom of a vinegar barrel in the stores where Dina let her sleep after extra shifts. Bolton's secret raven handler, an old salt fisherman pressed into cryptic duty, collected storehouse scraps weekly. She prayed he'd find the strip. She could not send ravens herself. Scullion hands were counted before entering rookery, and Weiss kept lists. Weiss, however, drank mulled ale each night before final round. Once drunk, he dozed in steward's niche. Arya took to following him at a distance as she had once shadowed Tomard. She noted where he kept keys. On a ring at his belt, heavy with bronze. Too many for her small fingers to lift unnoticed, but Weiss also kept spares in a cedar box above his cot. She glimpsed them, 3 slender picks on an iron rod. That would be her filament thread when the spider spun. One night she crept into steward's niche, eased the cedar lid. Keys glinted dull in starlight leaking via a narrow arrow slit. She pocketed the 2 small ones that matched chain rings on dungeon wrists, Jaqen's and his companion's locks. She wagered, though she'd only glimpsed them. Returning them would be risk. But she had a different plan. The following afternoon, she approached Jaqen's corner with a bucket. Under guise of slopping water at his feet, Dina had ordered the floor scrubbed after a cook spilled tallow. She pressed one key into his palm. His eyes widened ever so slightly. She inclined her head a hair's breadth. He said nothing, but she sensed the promise take root. 2 nights later, screams tore through scullery corridors. One of the lion guards found with throat open like a feed bag. Keys missing, stocks empty. Confusion raged. Dina ordered every urchin cuffed until sunrise. Arya endured Weiss's barked threats but kept head bowed, silent. When Tywin's men finished their search, they retrieved nothing but Weiss's spare keybox lid hanging broken. No prints, no clues. The 3 prisoners vanished into Harrenhal's belly. The very next dawn, rumor whispered that Lord Tywin's map chamber burned. Small fire contained quickly, cause uncertain. Another day later, word spread of poisoned barley in the horse bins. Tywin doubled guards at feed pens. People muttered shape-shifting ghosts. Some blamed Bolton raids in spirit form. Arya smiled behind her bucket. Bolton's ravens must have reached Robb by now. She had to learn where Tywin might truly march. The castle's war room, high in Widow's Tower, remained off limits, but scraps trickled downward. Tywin corresponded with Lord Felice Stokeworth for supply, commanded Ser Gregor to clear Pink Maiden's passes, planned meeting with Ser Stafford at the crag. Dates shifted as sabotage struck. A storehouse roof collapsed under rain rot. A water wheel shattered when its main gear cracked, the same wheel that drove the grain grinders for half the host. Arya noted each sabotage bore Jaqen's invisible fingerprint. Silent, eerie, precise. Perhaps he was repaying the debt. Sirio's voice returned. Send the water where you will, it flows. She wondered if she might direct the next flow. One evening, while scrubbing soot off a copper tureen in the scullery vestibule, she overheard Ser Amory berating a page. Tell Weiss I want the girl Eric as runner tomorrow. Lord Tywin's scribes need fetch work. She's quick. Panic flickered. Exposure to scribes meant proximity to Tywin himself, unmasked risk, but also unmatched chance to pump letters. She swallowed fear's blade and nodded when Weiss relayed the order, his jowls quivering with self-importance. Morning saw her ushered through guarded doors into Harrenhal Solar, where mended stained glass scattered broken rainbows across cracked stone. Tywin sat at an oaken trestle heavy with scrolls, quills, seals. Cersei's green wax glowed among them. Joffrey's gold winked small. He barely looked up as Weiss introduced her. "Runner," Tywin said, voice calm as fresh snow. "Stand there." He pointed to a spot near the western window, backlit so he could read her without raising eyes from ink. For hours she ferried letters between scribes, unfurled maps, restocked sand to blot spills. Tywin spoke rarely, but each word clipped and final. She measured him the way she'd measured Braavosi swordsmen, stance, breath, small gestures. When a scribe fumbled seal order, Tywin lowered his quill, lifted brow fractionally. The scribe blanched as though scourged. Fear served him like a hound. Midday, Tywin reached for wine flagon. Arya stepped forward to refill his cup. Weiss had drilled courtesy. As she tilted, her sleeve brushed a parchment corner, shifting it enough for her eyes to glimpse brief text. "Second wave meets at Duskendale. Lord Rowan to feign retreat." She inhaled sharply, caught herself, steadied cup. Tywin's gaze flicked to hers. Golden eyes narrowed. She lowered head instantly, murmuring apology. He watched a moment longer, then resumed writing. But an hour later, he dismissed her with a curt wave. "Return at dusk. The scribes will need runners again." Voice gave nothing away. She bowed out. In corridor, heart hammered. Duskendale. Rowan. Feigned retreat. She must commit details. She repeated them while hauling coal to smithy, letting heat burn them into brain. Duskendale 7 days, second wave, feigned retreat east. She carved it onto a bread heel with fingernail when alone, then tucked crumb into cod barrel to wait Bolton's Raven Fisher. Yet suspicion crept. Tywin's eyes held calculation. Would he allow a runner near maps without purpose? Could this be ruse to feed false leaks? If she misled Robb into trap, her blood would weigh the scales. She needed corroboration. Chance arrived sooner than hope. At dusk shift, scribes pored over second set of orders. Tywin discussed supply wagons with a new arrival, a red-haired maester bearing chain heavy with jasper links. Study of strategy histories. They spoke in low Valyrian, but Arya's Braavosi schooling lent glimpses. She caught Rowan's feint. Shipments north by negotiable seaward. Harry the twins to distract. The plan matched the crumb message. Relief mingled with dread. Trap or truth still unknown. She filed it all. Later, Tywin announced a change. "Runner, deliver this to Lord Serret's quartermaster at the 7th stable row." No delay. He sealed a folded parchment with plain wax. No crest. Arya sped through corridors, mind racing. Deliver or intercept? She chose the latter. Ducking into an abandoned side hall, she pressed hot knife tip, borrowed from kitchen, under seal edge, pried without cracking wax. A Braavosi trick used to lift tavern chits sealed with pitch. She unfolded letter. Hold 3 wagons of barley and weapon crates. Dispatch only upon arrival of gold cloak outrider. If riders bear jaunt pine sigil, kill them and burn proof. Orders of the hand. Gold cloaks, King's Landing Guard. Jaunt pine belonged to Ser Jacelyn Bywater, a commander rumored still loyal to city rather than queen. Tywin planned to hamper potential allies of Stannis or perhaps trap Bywater's men. This intelligence felt vital. She pressed seal back with candle flame, smoothing wax. Then she delivered letter. Night found her restless in straw corner. She considered writing second bread heel note. Hold wagons 7th stable, jaunt pine kill order. But Raven pickups were every 3 days. Could be late. Jaqen, ghost in trellised walls, might help. She sought him. The big merman and pale youth were rumored fled. Some said north wall tunnels swallowed them. But Jaqen was seen near ash pits. She crept through black corridors, guided by occasional torch. In a half-collapsed bathhouse she found him, silhouetted against moonlight spearing through roof fissure. Steam hissed from a cracked pipe. Ghostly drizzle hung. He greeted with smile gentle as snowfall. "A girl comes late." She whispered urgency, told him of Tywin's letter. He listened, head tilted like curious owl. "A man can help," he said. If 3 names are given. She felt chill. 3. 3 lives for 3 deaths stolen from the Red God, he said softly, meaning himself and companions she freed. A man repays. She thought of Bran under broken bones, of Father on Spike, of Sansa hostage. Yes, she said. Names spilled. Weiss for his keys and lash. Ser Amory Lorch for children murdered at harvest. And Chiswick for boasting laughs about a crying girl. Jaqen smiled. A god receives. Next morning, Weiss was found at foot of stone stair, neck twisted backward, the cedar box jammed in mouth. 3 hours later, Chiswick choked on wine laughing at midday story, crimson fountain spewing from nose. Ser Amory still strode ramparts, but rumor said he'd been assigned night patrols far from Tywin's pavilion. Arya left breadcrumb note in cod barrel. Stable row 7 hold wagons. Jaunt pine kill order from Tywin. She prayed Bolton's man found it. That evening she delivered turnip mash to officers' mess under guard. There she overheard Lord Lefford complaining. Ravens from the west reported Robb encircled Ser Stafford at Oxcross. Lions at camp bristled with worry. Morale cracked. Men whispered talk of cursed castle. Ghosts of Heron, ghost of mill, ghosts within walls. Arya let whispers ferment. Day later, Bolton riders ambushed the barley wagons outside stable row 7. Tywin erupted, demanding culprits hanged. He suspected inside leak, increased watch on scribes, restricted runners, Arya included. She was sent back to scullery full-time. Ser Amory Lorch oversaw the transfer. That night, Lorch's armor ignited from lamp fire spilled in his chambers. By dawn, only charred bones remained. Jaqen's debt settled. Tywin's order to march accelerated. Baggage trains lined causeway. Smithies disassembled for travel. Courtyard resounded with shouts of captains listing rations. Yet predictions of departure misfired thrice, each sabotage delaying. Arya concluded Tywin would not risk another ghost plague. Harrenhal's dread bled into lion hearts. One smoky dawn, Arya's tasks shifted. Dina seconded her to supply wagons stock-taking. Opportunity. She moved among crates, nodding to guards, scribbling counts. She found sealed casks labeled Blackfire. Alchemical wildfire disguised as pitch. Tywin intended nasty tricks. She devised sabotage. Pop stoppers with inserted iron nails so vibration of travel would jar flint against stone insides. But she lacked flint. She recalled Potboy Merrill boasting he'd filched flint striker from armory. She bartered half-night ration for it. Then, under cover of a wedge behind cask stacks, she jammed flint between nail and stopper so slightest jolt might spark. She rigged 3 casks, spaced among dozens. Any flash would ignite row. Hours later, trumpets blared. Tywin's host quit Harrenhal, columns snaking east. Arya had not been ordered to go. Scullery folk remained to feed skeleton garrison. She watched from Widow's Tower parapet as first wagons rumbled across drawbridge. When sun reached mid-sky, distant smoke plume bloomed green and orange. Wildfire kiss. Screams faint but clear soared. Tywin halted column, sent riders. Delay again. That dusk, ravens soared north, her flint message of fire, though Tywin would read only charred remains. She scaled parapet walkway, breathing night air free of kitchen soot. Harrenhal seemed to exhale beside her. She touched Needle's pommel beneath rags. Jaqen materialized from stair arch. A girl has more names? She eyed horizon where smoke still smoldered. The list grows, but the pack needs me more. He nodded. A man leaves at dawn. Riverlands bleed. Faceless water flows there. Thank you, she whispered. He bowed, fading. 3 days later, Bolton's messenger, disguised as peddler, slipped into castle and handed Arya a scrap. Wolf rides swift, Oxcross victory, Lannister in retreat. Relief sword. She realized her sabotage had pinned Tywin long enough for Robb's west march to triumph. Mission near done. She must escape to rejoin Robb before new warfront formed. She gathered resources, stole bread, filled a waterskin, Procured rusty dagger for Merrill, he insisted join. The broken teeth woman refused, fearing ghosts. She remained. Their path would be North Gate Culvert. Flood tunnel rumored sealed only by rust bars. To open, they needed saw. Smithy scraps yielded one small file. She and Merrill chipped bars across 2 nights. On third, storm dulled their noise. As they wriggled through gap, boots splashed behind. Halberd guard, torchlight bobbed. Arya shoved Merrill into water first, followed, clutching needle across chest. Cold rushed. They crawled along foul channel until outside moat's outer curtain where water poured into ditch. Mud sucked ankles. They crawled beneath briars until safe in forest gloom. Dawn unveiled them soaked, bruised, free. They followed Deer Trail northwest toward River Trident. Robb's nearest outriders camped near Fairmarket, if rumor true. They trekked for 3 days, subsisting on acorn mash and one unlucky frog. Twice they hid from Lion scouts riding south. Once they spied Brotherhood without banners burning tax carts. Arya considered joining but pressed on, family first. At dusk of 4th day, they stumbled on northern sentries. Karstark men, steel wolves on shields. Recognition spread fast. Word of Arya the kitchen ghost reached camps. They led her to Lord Bolton's newly built field fort south of Twins. But Bolton, she learned, had returned to Robb with prisoner load. She found instead Roose's bastard son, Ramsay Snow, attending. His gaze roved her like butcher seeking tender spots. She asked for escort to Robb. Ramsay smiled, promised next dawn. Yet that night, Arya caught Ramsay whispering with Maester. Planned to send her east for safekeeping. Alarm flared. She slipped from tent, found Merrill, warned him. They fled again, stealing shaggy Garen. Pursuit came fast, hounds bang. Merrill urged horse. Arya cut ropes across path to slow dogs. One hound yelped under fallen branch. After 2 leagues, they came upon ford lit by sputtering torches. Fry outpost. Freys detained them, suspicious. Arya feigned mute stable boy. Merrill claimed messenger to Edmure. They held them overnight in hayloft. Moonlight filtered. Arya heard boots climbing ladder. Fry soldier seeking sport maybe. She gripped needle. The soldier's head popped. Quick thrust ended threat. They lowered body out back. Fled on new horse. At dawn, gulls cried overhead. Trident delta near. Columns of northern banners approached from west. Umber, Glover, Manderley. Robb rode at column front astride gray courser. Arya spurred to intercept, hailing. Guards encircled. She tore rag hood. Robb's eyes widened. Disbelief melted to fierce joy. He lifted her down, crushing hug. Merrill bowed awkwardly. Robb thanked him, ordered coin and place among camp pages. Arya recounted Harrenhal, sabotage, letters. Robb's council gathered around campfire. Great John roaring approval. Meege Mormont calling Arya true bear. Robb clasped her shoulders. You fought as one of my captains. She shook head. A runner only. Runners win wars, he said. That night, camp feasted on boar, rare treat. Arya sat between Daisy Mormont and Hal Mullen, sipping watered wine. She felt heat in cheeks not from drink but from belonging. After feast, Robb summoned her to command pavilion. Candlelit maps sprawled again. He projected new operations. Pressed toward Lannisport while Bolton feigned retreat at Harrenhal. Arya advised on Tywin temperament, cautious yet vengeful. She suggested Bolton might turn cloak. Told of Ramsay's threat. Robb frowned, noted. He asked her next wish. To ride with outrider scouts or return to Mother with Grey Wind. She chose scouts. Weeks followed of ranging across river valleys, burning lion forage, freeing tethered small folk. Arya's reputation grew. Ghost runner, wolf in rags. She wielded needle in skirmishes, slashed stirrup straps, hamstrung warhorses. One moonless raid she saved Lord Rickard Karstark's son from crossbow, driving the shaft aside with flattened blade. Yet war turned tides. News came of Stannis crushed at Blackwater, Tywin freed to pivot north. Robb's momentum slowed. Letters spoke of marriage alliance with Fry undone. Arya sensed Storm's edge again. Robb dispatched her with envoy to treat with new Fry heir, apology mission. On journey to Twins, they passed Charred Farm, where Lion Knights had butchered half a village. Bodies hung from raft.